Hey, what's up, people? Before we get into today's episode, I just want to make you aware that I do know about the problem with the mic in this episode. We had a problem, it was my end, we couldn't fix it. But the problem was with Alex, I didn't want to take up any of his time because he's a busy man, he's doing me a favor, and his story was still great, and his microphone was working, and that's much more important because you want to hear him talk, not me. Other than that, everything's sorted for next week's episode, which is another banger, so make sure you come back. Make sure you listen. Thanks you guys for your patience. So let's get right into the episode. I won't make you wait any longer. Let's play the music. Hey, what's up, people? Welcome back to the Over the Amos podcast. It's me, Sam Matthews. This week, I'm joined by a proper legend of the US rugby scene. 125 appearances for the US Sevens. 8 appearances for the 15s, former US Sevens head coach. He was on the director of rugby for the US Sevens, and he's the current CEO of the New England Free Jacks. Alex Magleby. Mags, how are you, sir?
Sam, great. It's so good to connect and be on the pod today. Thanks for having me.
I know. I'm glad you came on. All those pestering Instagram messages must have finally got through to you. You got fed up over seeing them.
These are the good Instagram messages. You should see the other one.
Oh, well, it's glad that they finally got through to you. I was like, I'm going to have to leave this man alone at some point. He must be sick of seeing my name on his phone.
It's brilliant. Thank you.
But anyway, as we get started, as all the listeners know, we're going to get started with a quick bit of quick-fire questions just to get you loosened up. And then if you have any funny answers, we can cause from there.
All right. Do I need to get warmed up? Do a dynamic?
Bit of stretching.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. Okay. There you go. Also,
shout out for the listeners that can't see, Mags has got an incredible, massive cardboard cutout of Nate Ebner behind him there. And it's incredible to see. Every time I look to the right of the screen, I just get really put off with the eye contact, but I quite like it.
And the horse, can you see the horse as well?
Oh, yeah, we can. I've got a question about the horse. That's coming up.
We're going to talk about it. We're all together in this.
This is a group podcast now.
That's exactly. Need my friends to help me get through this.
Right. Max, quick fires. Get them started nice and quick. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Night out or a night in?
Oh, together, both. Can I do both? All night?
Exactly. Just day drinking and then having night in when you're feeling a bit sorry for yourself.
Yes.
Right. Would you rather score a try or make a try saving tackle?
Make a try saving tackle for sure. And then poke the ball and then run 100 meters and score the try. And have made 50 passes and a couple chip kicks.
Just go back to your own try line just to do it again as well. Yes. Get to the try line and run back and come.
Look how fit I am.
Yeah. Make sure you beat every player on the opposition's team at least once.
Yeah.
Right. If you had to get rid of one tomorrow, would you get rid of rugby or would you get rid of dogs?
Like across the world?
Yeah.
Like they disappear?
Yeah, like I Am Legend type stuff. Just disappear off the face of the earth.
Oh, no, you keep dogs. So we can always reinvent a sport like rugby. Yeah. On,
right. If you have to get involved in one, movies or TV series?
Movies.
Oh, I thought you'd be a TV series kind of guy.
I would rather digest a short form content, but I'd rather, if I was going to do something, be involved in it, I'd rather do long form.
That makes sense. Yeah. Right. 7s or 15s?
Depends on what is in front of me at that moment in time. Literally, like when I was, coaching 15s, that was the greatest thing in the world. When I was playing 15s, that was the greatest thing in the world. When I'm playing 7s, that was the greatest thing in the world. Coaching 7s, that's the greatest thing in the world.
Just happy to be involved with the ball in your hand.
Yeah. But literally at the time, you're like, it's the greatest. This is the most amazing thing.
I felt the exact same way when I played. Right. If you're going on a night out, would you rather be in a nightclub or would you rather be in a pub with some live music?
Pub. Friends.
See,
exactly. Talk. Some music in between the talk. Yeah.
Exactly. Not got somebody spilling a beer down the back of you while you're trying to stand on somebody else's feet.
No. Nightclubs, nothing ever good happens.
Right. Would you rather do a cardio day or an arms day in the gym?
Cardio.
Oh. Right. I don't know if this one will work. I don't know if they have them in New England, but would you rather eat bourbons or custard creams?
I have no idea what either one of those are. So kind of bourbon in custard cream.
if you made that, you could be onto a
not bourbon.
No, it's not bourbon like the whiskey. So there are 2 biscuits in England, and they're quite common there. You've got a chocolate-filled one, which is a bourbon, and then you have a custard-filled one, which is a custard cream.
Chocolate one.
That's the correct answer. It's an opinion based, but in my mind, it's the correct answer. Right. Socks and sliders, yes or no?
What's a slider?
Like flip flops, but without more like a sandal, but not like a strap.
And you wear socks in those?
Yeah.
No. Although you wear the hidden socks so your feet don't smell, I guess.
Oh, you'll find the athletes around here. Everybody, as soon as you finish training, take the boots off straight into the sliders. It's basically just everybody around here is lazy, but in Scotland it's too cold to go open foot.
Are those like my indoor shoes? Are those like my Birkenstocks? I think we're talking the same language. Birkenstocks, no socks.
Yeah, Birkenstocks are the same thing, but
no socks, absolutely not. And growing up in the 80s and 90s, when people would wear socks with their Birkenstocks and Tevas, that was really hard to digest. Even then,
it's not stood the test of time.
Not stood the test of time. You're like, oh, they must be from Europe.
Yeah. I imagine that's what you have a lot of things when you see fashion. You go, that's definitely something that's infiltrated from Europe.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
What's like also when you're in Europe, everywhere you walk, you know, oh, that's the American. You know, like,
I wasn't gonna say it, but you guys, I think the problem is we hear you a bit more before we see you.
Yes, that is a problem, and we have all the answers, but we pretend to be friendly, and we've got our baseball caps.
Hey, I've got a San Francisco one up there right at the back. You can just see the orange poking through. First ever baseball game. That was a bit of fun.
Come on, we got to get you to a Red Sox game in Fenway. That's the real magic.
Oh, I can't. I've got a New England team. The San Francisco is the baseball. I'll tell you a bit later, but I have a different team from.
I saw Will Clark hit his thousandth hit at the old Candlestick Park.
Wow,
that was my first baseball game actually.
Wow, that's incredible.
It was also the Giants.
We managed to rig some cheap tickets on StubHub, and we ended up sitting right behind the plate, and it was incredible to watch.
Awesome.
Yeah,
great venue.
$25 or something incredible. That was down at what's the name of the Giants? The San Francisco Giants.
It was AT&T Park. I don't know what it is today. No, I can't remember what they call it today. Could be the same.
All I know is it dwarfs every stadium that we've got in the UK. So
yeah.
And the shame is it was half empty. But right, what's your go-to musical?
Musical?
Yeah.
What? Oh, there's so many good ones. I mean, besides Annie or Sound of Music, or I mean, where do I start? Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, Oklahoma. We can do the whole Rodgers and Hammerstein. They're all too good.
Too many to choose. I think we'll take the answer there.
West Side Story. I don't know.
Hey, great musical. Great musical. I only saw that for the first time recently the other week.
Oh, nice. Do you like it?
I was a big fan of it. I didn't think I would, but they've remade that new one, haven't they? The Disney one, and it's pretty much just West Side Story again.
Yeah, and all West Side Story is a modern day Romeo and Juliet. So it's if you like Shakespeare, then you like West Side Story, or vice versa.
Macbeth, you've got to watch your Macbeth, then you've learned your Shakespeare.
Yes.
That's just devout Scottish patriotism. Anything Scottish is a success, and north of the wall. Right, and final one. Would you rather have a team activity day out, like an organized team fun, like Laser Quest or something, or a team night out?
Oh, that's a good one. I would do the team activity, the day activity, for sure.
Mm-hmm. I think that's because they take a bit more organization, and getting everybody in the same place is difficult.
It's just fun. Like you got to go skiing, hiking, all that kind of stuff. That's really fun. We did that a couple years ago with the guys. We took them out in the woods here in northern New England, and they loved it.
Oh, no better place as well. I appreciate a good hill walking scene.
Yeah,
so.
in the snow, and a lot of these guys had never seen snow before. It was brilliant.
Wow, I can't imagine not seeing snow. But anyway, that is quick fire questions with Mags. Mags smashed it, comfortable, everything else. So we're just gonna get right into it, and I just want to start off with congratulating you and the team on the first successful year in the MLR.
Thanks, Sam. It was a really fun year. Like we really had a lot of fun, and I think on the field the team kept getting better and better, and that's all we can ask. And they were there to make the playoffs, which was good. And they played some really good rugby. And then off the field, you know, our fans are unbelievable. We had great TV ratings, but as we were able to allow fans in over time, slowly but surely with COVID, they were fantastic. So yeah, it was a great start to being involved in what will be a legendary competition years to come, for sure.
Oh, it's only on the up. I was hooked after about week 2 or 3. I think the way they broadcast this over the Rugby Network is incredible.
Yeah, how great is that? So you can get that anywhere and it's free. How awesome!
Exactly. I'm sat here. I'll be editing a podcast or something, and I can sit with it on an iPad there, and it's not cost me a penny. That's how rugby should be. None of this behind the paywall stuff.
No, that's brilliant. Yeah, that's really important for us.
No, I smashed it, and I couldn't be more impressed with it. So back to the beginning.
How did you find rugby? How did rugby come into the life of Alex Magleby?
Yeah, so I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. So that's in the middle of the Rocky Mountains, and we had a fantastic rugby program in my high school. Highland High had, at the time, USA Rugby had a national championship for high schools, like an official sanctioned national championship, and Highland won 75% of those. My freshman year, we had first time we had lost in years, and then played again sophomore through senior year. Fantastic program at the time. This is in the 90s. We were training 5 days a week. We were doing video study. You had to do fitness outside of training. It was a performance program. Just all of us played football, and it was just like our football program. 100 guys played football, 100 guys played rugby, and it was in the spring. So we were able to travel the country playing, travel the world. A bunch of the guys I played with actually went and had NFL careers, so real talent, serious talent. So I was exposed early on, so extraordinarily lucky to a great program, where I think a lot of people originally are exposed in the U.S. It's kind of more social, and that's great too, but it was just a rarity. And then I played at university at Dartmouth. It's kind of the legendary Ivy League powerhouse in rugby, and great coaching there. And we ended up building a world-class facility, but that had been 60 plus years of international touring and quality coaching, and again, opportunities in rugby that didn't necessarily exist in the United States in the 90s in large volume. And so I had these great experiences that I was just very fortunate to have, that not a lot of kids were able to have. And that was then able to put me in a position to start playing for the national team while I was still in university. And then I was able to take that after I graduated and continue to play. And at the time, rugby was on the just going pro, but clearly not pro in the US. So half the year you'd be playing, and then half the year you'd be working back in the States or wherever. I did a time in New Zealand for a year, and then I came back, and the half the year where I was off, I was coaching. So that really augmented my playing, and then my playing augmented my coaching. And so kind of for the last 5 years of my playing career, I was a full-time coach, which was really cool to get into coaching that way.
That's incredible, because we hear so much, especially from my perspective looking into the US. You see all the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, and they're pulling kids out of high school and just going, here's millions and millions of dollars, and you're on the regimented, you're going to get told what to wear for the next 20 years if you're good, stuff effectively. But it's nice to see that they were actually doing that for rugby as well, because I don't know if you've noticed this as well, but I struggle to feel why rugby hasn't caught on as big as it has in the US. I know there's a lot of competition for TV and sport, but
yeah, so you look at all the sports that are at the top of the commercial game in the United States. They've been around for 100 plus years being played, and they've had their own struggles. Football in the United States for a long time, had its own professionalization struggles, and it really has taken time, but it's a massive, sports entertainment complex at this stage. And they all have had massive participation as an underbelly, where rugby really hasn't had a massive amount of participation as an underbelly. It's not something that typically towns have supported or boys and girls clubs have supported. Where you're from, every club has a piece of real estate, and that really grounds it. Most sports in the United States aren't run through clubs like that at the lower levels. They run through the town recreation department, and that's run, they go through the school system and everything else. And so on a crowded sports calendar, you haven't had historically rugby is a piece of that scholastic model. Most kids a few generations ago, it was, if you're a boy, American football in the fall, in the winter was basketball, in the spring was baseball. And you've seen that evolve over time. Lacrosse has a significant scholastic model. Obviously, soccer, football, your football has really grown over the last generation, so for the last 30, 40 years. But rugby hasn't historically had that underpinning of really massive participation that then creates secondary education opportunities, scholarship, which then puts the talent into a professional infrastructure that is supported by this massive fan base because they've all participated. But what we've learned from soccer and the professionalization of soccer, and where that's been most successful, has not been necessarily the underbelly of participation, but actually the entertainment piece and people in the cities wanting to have that experience and everything else. So there's a lot of ways that rugby is now learning how to short circuit the system, as we also are seeing growth at the youth level, which will be generationally really important for the success of the game. If that makes sense.
It made sense to me. It should make sense to the listeners as well. But you explained it beautifully. Of just it's very fast on the right track, and it's growing a lot faster than I think anyone could have predicted. But
10 years ago, if you were a girl playing in the United States for a team, you weren't going to get a scholarship to university, nor was it going to be a tool to help you get into one of the better academic universities, say the Ivy League, like playing lacrosse would, or playing soccer or field hockey or ice hockey or basketball. But now, if you're a really good and competitive high school athlete, you can go to a Harvard, a Dartmouth, a Brown, a West Point. That's our military academy, because you're really good at rugby as also being a good student, and that's really cool. That's a game changer on the women's side of the game. And you're seeing on the men's side of the game, even though it's not NCAA, it's not run by NCAA, you're seeing those opportunities as well. So that's really changing the dynamic of the quality of athletes and the impetus for parents to support their kids playing at the youth level.
Exactly. I think it's great as well. I think that's what US sports, what the UK could really learn from US sports, is the sort of emphasis on, if you go to college, you get put into a national almost camera, you get seen on the national level, and you're also encouraged to stay in education. And I think especially soccer here is really bad for taking kids out at a young age that have potential. And then you'll probably see that on social media as well. They get in these programs, they get to 22, they'll have a sit down with the manager one day who says, "Oh, you're just not going to make it." And then they're just flung out of this academy at 22, and they've not had a class, not been in a classroom since they were 14 or 15.
Yeah, and that's tough. Or had an apprenticeship as a trade, or any other number of things to have a successful life. Having skills and crafts to be able to earn a living, and that's really scary.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Speaking of that, let's talk about college. So you were Dartmouth, you were 14-time Ivy League champion and 2 times US collegiate champion in your time there. Did you find time to do any studying while you were celebrating with trophies and parading around the pitch? Or?
So I graduated in 2000 with an engineering degree, which I always thought that I was going to be an industrial engineer. Where that did help me is I started a sports analytics company pretty early on in my coaching career, and kind of that background really helped. So while I was serving as head coach, once I retired from playing, what I would do and the other part of the day effectively was run a sports analytics company. And this is this is early 2000s. So kind of Moneyball situation had been happening at the Oakland A's.
Yeah.
Not that a lot of people knew about it at the time, but you started to see this influx of analytics into sports. Sports Code as a video resource tool, a video analytics tool, was hard to get in the United States, and we'd been using it on the national team. So we effectively became a shop and a resource to train people on video analytics. So that's kind of how I made a living effectively, so I could coach, was running a sports analytics company.
Oh, wow. Well, it sounds like you managed to mold profession and passion very well there.
Yeah, I got fortunate. Yeah, for sure. And it just, it was perfect timing in a lot of ways.
Wow. So what was it like being a 7-star? As well, a 7-star in the US and traveling the world?
Star being the operative word.
100. If you're 125 appearances in, you're a star. It's not a fluke. If you had 1 or 2, we'd question mark it. But 125.
So I got to a stage in my playing career where I sat down with general manager at the time of USA Rugby, the men's national programs. Like, listen, you're going to have to specialize in one or the other. I was playing 7s and 15s. And I was an open side flanker, and the game, as it continued to become more and more professional, the size of the players was dramatically changing. And so I had kind of a choice. It was, I could continue to travel on the world on the 7th circuit, become even faster and fitter. Weight wasn't going to be, mass wasn't going to be as important. Or on the other side, I would, really need to kind of stick and be grounded, chase the professional game in Europe if I could, and really put on some weight and kind of do that. And for me, where I was in my life at that time, I'd kind of had that experience, and I just wanted to continue to travel the world and use rugby as a tool to meet great people and see the world. And so sevens then became my specialization at that stage. And so it was great. I mean, that's a very rewarding experience. This is pre-Olympic announcement. US was just starting to figure it out. We weren't even allowed on half the tournaments. We weren't a core team, but we did well enough in some of those to put ourselves in a position to be a pretty successful team. So that was a lot of fun, for sure.
Well, looking at your highlights and research for this, you were not a bad player from my professional opinion as a avid rugby watcher.
We wore really heavy cotton jerseys like this, and the game was so much slower than it is today. So a ginger from Utah could actually be successful.
Mate, I'm a 5'8" curly-haired kid from the heart of the Scottish borders.
How great is that with rugby? That it's just there really is in many aspects at most levels a place for everybody.
Exactly, and the people you meet as well. For example, we're talking now, and then as we were saying off air, I was talking to a guy who was from the literally cowboy Canada, who now makes his trade in LA.
Yeah, how awesome.
And then all separated by 15 blokes throwing a ball at each other and trying not to die within the 80 minutes.
Just have fun.
Exactly. So, so how did you come about as the CEO for the New England Free Jacks?
Yeah, so I was general manager for USA Rugby 2000 kind of 6. I'd been the high performance director, and then kind of heading into the Olympics in 2016, right after the 15s World Cup through kind of 2018, I had signed with USA Rugby to be the general manager. So seeing all our national teams, all our pathway programs, everything else. So 15 sevens, men, women, the competitions that fed into that and everything else. So I was privy on that side to seeing iterations of folks trying to professionalize the game in the United States. I knew that my time at USA Rugby was coming to an end. That's something we had agreed to at the beginning of me taking it. I didn't want to do it forever. I was traveling 11 months of the year. We had a small family. My wife was finishing up, her training as an MD, as a doctor. So I really did not want to be. So I knew that well in advance. And then as we were kind of assessing what's the next take, what's the next, where does this game go? Why am I involved? Well, one, rugby is fun. And I just want to make sure that it's being shared with more people. And two, true believer, along with my eventual co-founder here, Eric Anderson at the Free Jacks, and our soon-to-be other owners, that rugby is just a great tool for building better communities. It really is. It's a perfect game for boys and girls and fans alike. Just the values of it and everything else. We truly believe that. So is there a better way to share this game more quickly? And we looked at the local level and decided that, yes, the professionalization can really be the key to helping drive all that. So it's a better experience for fans of the sport. So it's a better experience for those who are playing and participating in the sport. For those that don't even know the sport yet, how can we help them get into it? So that's really how we came about it. While we were going through that kind of internal discussion, MLR Rugby was starting to come together, and they put together a season that year. There's a few founding clubs. That was 2018, and so we decided to introduce our ideas and our business plan, and they accepted it, and we became members in late autumn of 2018. And within a month, we were playing against the Arrows, and we just went after it and built a program and built a sports entertainment company pretty quickly, which has been super, super fun. As you can tell by my voice. Just kidding.
by the bags and it's like the third double espresso.
I'm not angry.
It's the third double espresso you've had since we started the podcast.
Yes,
No, you're
exactly.
fine. You've done a cracking job, and I want to give you a special. I don't know if it was yourself that made it, but you have that regional, almost competition level as well now, and it's
developing it. Yeah.
And you've got the teams up and down New England.
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, what we've seen with the game here is it's disparate. There's the clubs haven't been able to do a great job recruiting from the colleges, who haven't been able to do a great job from the high schools. So perhaps we can help connect all those dots, right? And some of that is, and then also making sure that the athletes and coaches at all those levels have a chance to get better outside of just their 8 club games a year, right? Which in many cases are it's not a great field. There may be a coach, there may not be a coach. A lot of the participants really aren't even coached. So can we help that in a way So let's really build an interstate to connect all these things that in time, will allow training groups to compete against each other, teams to compete against each other, and really drive a farm system, for lack of a better term, that really helps the club game and helps the performance side of the game as well.
Well, exactly. You don't get the fruit at the top of the tree without the roots, is what my old biology teacher used to say whenever we were doing stuff, and I've took that with me and completely changed it to a different setting. But
yeah, and what we have here in New England is these rich roots, but we don't have a system of veins and branches and everything else to connect to the fruit, right? So it's we've got that top canopy with the pro game and international game, and so let's just help connect those dots, so those roots can continue to flourish.
Exactly. It's what the US are doing quite well is, I don't know if you saw it in the women's game, there was a movement on social media late last year, and it was called if you want to be it, you have to see it. Or I might have paraphrased that, but they did that with the women's game of show the female athletes, give them the TV time. And then I think that's what you guys are doing really well, and that's what attracted me to buy the jersey and support the team, because I could see it wasn't a case of we're here to be the New England Free Jacks. We're here to help New England and rugby.
Yeah, it's got to be. And it's got to be whatever we do for little girls, we want to be doing for little boys. Whatever we do for young men, we want to be doing for young women, and vice versa. As much as possible. And our goal, of course, is to figure out a way and to professionalize the women's game in New England. That's an ultimate goal, and we're working hard to try to make that become a reality as well.
Well, with the drive and determination you guys have got, not to blow smoke up your arse and the team, but I think you're going to get there sooner than later, and watching how things have unfolded. So,
no, Sam, appreciate that for sure. Yeah, we got a lot of work ahead, but it's there's just awesome opportunity with the sport.
Exactly.
Which I'm really excited about.
Exactly. So, talking nicely about New England, it leads me on. Was there pressure when you thought about doing it in New England? Because obviously, the teams there are a bit better than average from history in other sports.
We're very lucky in New England. There's probably more players per capita than anywhere else in the country. Outside of the youth game is probably biggest in Southern California. But Massachusetts is one of the 6 states in New England, is the only state in the United States that has actually state-sanctioned high school rugby for boys and girls, where it's run by kind of the traditional high school athletic association that would run football and lacrosse and ice hockey and basketball, baseball. So that's really awesome. And then you have the traditional university structure in New England that, again, per capita, there's more college students than kind of anywhere else in North America. And though all those programs have a history of rugby, some good, some bad, some in between. So there's a lot of history there that is really, really cool. Our job is to help, again, going back to that earlier, is help connect the dots and make those experiences better for those that are participating in those clubs and colleges and high school programs, and then really develop the youth game. There hasn't been massive youth participation. There's a little awesome little nuggets here and there, based purely on volunteers working really hard. But let's create a system then that can really connect those, and that's what we're trying to do again with the academy system and everything else, is really grow the youth game.
Wow. So like the trophy town, when you compare yourself, obviously you have Nate not behind you, but you have people like Nate and Patrick Chung with you. Does the professionalism of the Patriots and the teams like that sort of seep in? Do you get advice from the other teams like the Red Sox, like the Bruins?
Yeah, there's a really, really good sports entertainment industry in the Boston area, right? You have obviously the Patriots, you have the Red Sox, you have the Celtics, you have the Bruins, who are all championship caliber teams on any given year. And that's awesome. There's a really, really strong tradition of high performance sport in our area. But you got to look at the Red Sox. I mean, they took 87 years for them to World Series, between the last time they did. But you would have never said that they weren't competitive or they weren't in the mix, or they were always selling out at Fenway. It's a great organization. And what we have found is a lot of those organizations have been very friendly to us as we've come in, for sure. And then you have the others like New England Revolution and Major League Soccer. And there's a few more kind of at that next level. So everybody's been really helpful as we've continued to try to grow.
Amazing. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Wow. So what's it like running a team as a CEO? What's the day-to-day like? Because we have a game here that's quite popular. It's called Football Manager, and what it is, it's just glorified spreadsheets and emails. But apparently it's a game, and we will chuck up hours on it.
Yeah.
And that's like getting to be the CEO of your favorite soccer team. So
yeah,
you basically get to play that game in real life, which I'm very jealous of.
The romance is so now when you're running a business, right? We're in the sports, entertainment, and events media business. The rugby portion of it, that content part of it, which is the part that I came up in, is only one small part. It's the engine of the bus for sure, but it's only the engine. What I have to spend a lot of my time on is making sure that all the other pieces are in place, that they're all connected. So a lot of my days deal with kind of on the front end of the day is operations, is HR, is legal, is finance. Is making sure that we're spending the money the way that we say we're going to spend it, to make sure that we're assessing who we are on a regular basis. That's kind of that ops part. And then really, really important for us is tickets and attendance. That's going to drive one of the main drivers of this business. And then sponsorship, one of the main drivers of this business. Merchandise, like an additional driver of the business. Our media play, what does that look like? Our foundation. Okay, so how do we articulate and help communities with other things that may or may not be involved with rugby, but the causes that are really important to us. We're participants in 1% for the planet, which means all the revenue we generate, 1% of that we donate to various environmental causes that are really, really important to us. Mental health is really big for our organization, not only bringing awareness to it, but helping to fund initiatives that really change the lives of children. So that we have various causes that are really important to us as an organization, because we have a voice. We're part of the community that are really key. So a lot of my day is, kind of all of that kind of stuff. And then, we can get to the rugby part. Fortunately, we have a really good team on the rugby side that we've developed over the last few years. Tom kindly leads that for us as the performance director. And we kind of spend basically every night together on the phone and kind of going through the fun things that you're talking about. Yeah,
all the good stuff.
Yeah,
so basically, you get to the rugby on the Saturday and just fall into the chair and go, I don't have to think about anything for 8 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. They're doing the analysis and everything else. So when we were starting and I was mentoring a lot of our staff, that was something that I was really hands-on in. And over time, as certainly Tom has grown, and we've brought in other coaches who really fit the bill. That kind of rugby department has been able to do some really good things.
Amazing. That sounds incredible. Well, we can move out of the boring stuff now. We've spoke about rugby, which nobody wants to hear on the Overname in his podcast. So, Mags, you've just said to yourself there, you spend every hour of the day trying to improve rugby and share rugby with the masses. How do you find the time to then host your own podcast, have such an active social media? I need to question the horse mask, because it's something I've never understood, but I think is brilliant. And then, where did you manage to create the extra 4 hours that you seem to have in every day?
Yeah. So again, when we hit the pandemic, we quickly had to wind down. And unfortunately, what that looked like is we'd spent all our money, because all running the season is all upfront costs. Getting the stadium ready, housing, player contracts, all the big chunks of what you spend money on were kind of all out the door. So we made sure the players were whole, even though they were going to play the season. And then we had to really dig deep at the local level, save money, but also how do we continue to make sure that we're relevant so that we can get through the pandemic and be ready to launch when the pandemic's over. Okay, so let's make sure we're continuing to connect with our current community, but let's also make sure we're bringing others to our sport, to MLR, to the Free Jacks in various ways. So we decided that one of our strategies was going to have a podcast family of content that we were going to produce to bring in various affinity groups to kind of connect and reconnect with what a lot of us are so passionate about. So then Full Contact CEO was the impetus for that was, okay, let's bring in the business community, not only because rugby produces a lot of those type of people, but also it's just interesting to a lot of us, and then we can tie them into the brand. Those conversations are happening anyway on a regular basis. We're always reaching out to others and to try to learn as much as we possibly can. And to put ourselves in a position of vulnerability. We said, why don't we share that with the rest of the world if the people we're talking to are so willing? Because again, those conversations are happening anyway for us to try to learn to be a world-class organization. So it wasn't going to be a massive uplift by turning a lot of those conversations into podcasts. And so that's what we started to do. And we're going to have season 3 rolling out here this fall, which I'm really excited about here pretty soon.
No, it's a brilliant podcast. I'm really good at promoting other people's podcasts on my podcast because I've got a good friend of mine. I've got 2 good friends of mine that also have ones as well. But I really like the Full Contact CEO for exactly the reason you said. Of fair enough, it's aimed at world-class business and stuff. I've learned stuff even about marketing in this podcast just from you guys. So my listeners, if you're entrepreneurial or anything, give Full Contact CEO a listen.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sam, for that. Full Contact CEO.
If you keep that voice, I might get you to do the intro for this, and I can get rid of the old drum and bass intro that I've got.
Drum and bass is good.
It gets the listeners hyped up for an hour and a half of me waffling and stumbling through a car crash.
No, I'm going to listen to a podcast. Let's go.
And then you get the crackling mic that took me like 3 episodes to figure out, and then it was terrible.
Yeah. I've been through those audio problems for sure.
I know you never know it's wrong until the end of it as well, which is the problem when you go back and listen to it.
The worst are when people want to record podcasts late at night, and you're like, I just put the kids to bed. I'm having a beer with my wife. It's a Friday night, and then you're like, I got to jump on this podcast. They're actually the best because they're hilarious. But anyway.
Yeah, the podcast, for want of a better term, when everybody just thinks, fuck it, we'll just go for it. They're the best podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Media training, everything just goes out the window. I'll say whatever comes into my head.
Sam, that should be a t-shirt that you guys produce.
Well, just fuck it.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. I think I say that more. It probably does me more harm than good because everything on YouTube probably gets demonetized for me saying it. But so
new t-shirt.
Max, the horse mask. How did the horse mask come about?
Well, so because remember, like part of our brand is the horse, right? That's a really important piece to what we're about. And at the end of the day, it's the fist of freedom, holding the light of hope. But that's the rider. That's the midnight rider. And so the horse has been a part of our brand from the very beginning, that action, that motion. And so it's just important to make sure that we're reminding ourselves of the brand as we go. At the end of the day, rugby is fun. We're a super fun organization. And we can't just say that. Like, as we sat down with my board, this is in the spring of 2020, and they're like, we see that every day. Our board, we're collectively saying this, and our staff were saying this. But are we really living that and showing it to our friends every day? So let's just make sure that we're doing that. Whatever we are probably doing in the office anyway, let's make sure we're sharing that. And as you know, rugby people the world over are great people, and in most cases very funny. And so it's just been a great opportunity. Social has given us the opportunity to share that. Like, this is what we're doing in the office. Here's what it looks like.
Here's the chaos that is. Here's
exactly.
the chaos that is an MLR office.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's just fun, right? And so I think that's really good, and that's really good for our supporters and fans. And they're like, wait a minute, if the CEO can be vulnerable, then the rest of us can be too. And I think that's been good for our staff.
Exactly. Well, the one bit of your social media that sticks with me, and it will always stick with me, because I've worked in various companies where we've had CEOs that they won't even open the door. They'll expect somebody to open it for them. And then there was you, and I think it must have been before. It was either the last game of the season or the second last game of the season, and it was torrential rain in New England. And you were there in this little anorak raincoat, like the $2 ones that you pull out from. And you were there, and you were literally putting bin bags in bins. And I sat and I was like, if the CEO of an MLR, like this man that has so much history and pedigree, is willing to stand there and going, I will stand in the rain and I will put bins in bin bags and I will do all the grunt work. I think, like you said, to rugby people especially that come from a game that used to be amateur until 20 years ago, like they know that it's a club that cares about rugby, not a club that is profiting from rugby.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing is there's no job for any of us that's too big, right? And if it needs to get done, you get it done. And that's certainly every rugby team I've been involved in over time in virtually every continent. I've never played in Antarctica, but it behaves that way, and that's the awesome thing. And so if we can continue to live that way, that'll continue to attract new people to our sport, because that is something that is often missing in today's sports entertainment complex, but also just in day-to-day life. And, if we can share that, I think that's awesome. And I think people really, really appreciate that, wow, that's what rugby people do. That's what being a free jack is,
Quite right. You should get that on a t-shirt.
Yes.
That's what being a free jack is, full stop. Just no explanation.
That's it.
This is just turned to a merchandising meeting.
Yeah, exactly. Put it on the back of t-shirts. So you're sitting in the coffee shop, like, what is that?
What's a free jack? Yeah.
What is that?
There we go. Well, Mags, I know I've got you for a short period of time, so we're going to rattle on quickly. And I want to talk about the draft. Obviously, I just spoke about it with James. That'll be 3 weeks ago when this episode comes out. And he was saying from his perspective of the whole world just slows down when he gets that call. Obviously, he had a nightmare with his delay, and he was 30 minutes late, so everybody was ringing him before he found out who he was on. Literally the last guy in the world to know who he was playing for. So on draft day, are you in the room, like, we like talking about the NFL again, you see these big war rooms that they call it. Are you in the room? Do you get to be the one that makes the calls, or do you give that pride to somebody else?
So TK runs it on our behalf as our performance director, and then we touch base, and then he rolls with it with the league. So he'll connect with coaching staff, and then with me and ownership, and then he then rolls it with MLR. I was actually on vacation that week. I'm the head of the competitions committee for MLR. When we were coming up with the dates for everything, I was like, oh goodness, this is really falling in the 1 week a year that we always go on vacation. Like when my wife can take a week off from the hospital, kids are not at school, we shut down. And then so I'm calling in from the White Mountains of New Hampshire into the draft, and TK did a great job of running it.
I was gonna say, you still smashed it with some good picks, but it's nice to see that even above all that, you're still, because what I always try is like the personal life comes first. Like as much as everything is that, you've got to have your own time. Always.
And if you don't, then it doesn't last. The other side gets eroded in time. And I've seen that countless times in sports with coaches and everything else. If things aren't put in boxes, eventually it overcomes you, and it's not good. So, yeah.
Wow. But no, like we said, I think the draft is it's just an incredible bit of stuff to encourage kids to go to college, but then also you see that happiness and elation from people when they get picked. And I think, obviously I know James, but I'd love to be in the room with somebody at a draft gathering. I think that'd be incredible.
Yeah, once pandemic's over, that's going to be much easier to do live in person, as well as to monetize with more eyeballs. Yeah. Like, and hat tip to our league to be able to do it the last 2 years virtually, effectively. But when we can really do that draft live in person, and most of the people are in the room and everybody sees that, that's going to be really cool.
Oh, yeah, I'd be looking forward to it. So we're going to end off quickly before we do the famous under the team bus section with the final. What's the goals for Alex Magleby and the Free Jacks in the next couple of years or long term?
For this year, for 22. Really, really important that we continue to drive forward with our fans, and that they can drive our, experiences. And I think our fans are doing a really good job. We've got multiple fan groups now that they're driving, and there's multiple fan groups that have created podcasts, and that's super exciting. For us, the attendance is really, really important. Our academy initiatives and our learn to play initiatives are really, really important. And those two, all of those are connected. So those are all really, really important pieces for us over the next 6 months, for sure.
Wow. And then the long-term goal, any long-term goals planned yet? Any big master plan whiteboards in the office somewhere?
Yeah, it's funny. Eric and I were just talking about this, just how excited we are from 20 years from now, when we've had an entire generation of kids play in New England. We're not talking about 1,000 kids, but you're talking about tens of thousands of kids per year. So you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people just in our region alone having been exposed to the values of the game. And that's really, really, really exciting, right? And that's a great journey ahead to be a part of.
And that does seem like a good goal, something that when you eventually decide enough's enough and I can walk away, and you get more than that 1 week a year, you can go, I know this is in safe hands. That must be quite a feeling to work towards.
Yeah, but rugby, you never
walk away. You'll still be putting bins in bin liners.
Yeah, it's always there, which is amazing.
No, well, those sound like really well goals. I've enjoyed that. So we're gonna get one last question. Can you understand what Doogie Fife says, or is there times when you have to slow down?
No, I can't understand anything he says.
He's not even got a
Sorry,
stiff accent. He's got quite a soft one as well. He's an Edinburgh man.
Yeah. No, I can understand Dougie.
Good.
I just need a beer first, and so it slows down my brain.
The problem is he's probably had one as well.
He's been a great free jack. It's great to have.
He's a top bloke. I got to meet him once or twice in passing and various rugby camps and things like that. But he's a top bloke.
He's awesome.
Yeah, always gave the time for us, and we were 15-year-old little hotheads that thought we were the best players coming out in the world. So he must be a patient man if he was dealing with us. So credit to him. Right. Mags, before we get going, we're going to do the famous under the team bus section. What this is, it's just a famous section of questions where, like the quick fires, you just say the first name that comes into your head. But unfortunately, they might be questions where it's like, who's the worst tackler you've ever played rugby with?
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So I promise there's nothing there that's going to make you lose any friends, but you might just have a few DMs after it going, you really think I'm the worst tackler that you've ever played rugby with?
Okay.
So, right, we'll get started. Who's the hardest tackler you've ever played rugby with?
That I've played with? Well,
played with or against, if there was a notable hit where somebody folded you like a cheap suit?
I got folded pretty well by Rodney Soyalo at one stage in the early 2000s. That was significant. Yeah, for sure.
I was going to say, any hit that you remember for 20 years?
I think he was also holding my dreads and then punched me as well. So it was good. I think it was like a good, back in the day.
Saying hi.
Two loose forwards going at each other. That was in a 70s. But yeah.
Right, who's got the fastest feet?
Carlin
Isles.
Well, let me rephrase that. Carlin this way, for sure.
Yeah.
Then this is not by measurement, but just by looking. I was at a Patriots practice. Mike Friday and I were actually a couple of years ago. And Julian Edelman's feet, just like quickness, unbelievable. Just absurd.
I said this all the time. Julian Edelman could have been a world rugby star if he chose to play rugby.
He's just, his feet were... And he went to high school with Zach Test.
Yeah. Have you not thought about messaging Nate and Patrick and going, Julian still looks like he's in a bit of good shape? I saw him on the panel shows.
I to play all the time. Yeah. But yeah.
There we go. A bonus question there. Do you think a team of rugby players would beat a team of American football players in football, and vice versa? Do you think a team of American football players could win a game of rugby?
A team of American football, if you're talking about NFL, would destroy a team of World Cup best players playing American football, because the game is it takes so many years to understand some of the principles of the game and everything else, right? It doesn't mean that those athletes couldn't learn football. It's just you're talking about a lifetime of training. I would say the same thing in rugby for the most part. There's just certain skills in rugby that just take a lot of repetitions and visualizations to understand. It doesn't mean that a lot of American quality NFL players wouldn't be world-class rugby players in time. It's just, what is that time? And for some positions, that may only be 2 years. In sevens, we were able to do that in 6 months with certain players, wings and a few others. You're starting to see that a bit more in sevens, some of those crossovers having some success, which is great. I think in 15s as well, that can also happen. It's just certain positions will take a lot longer. No,
I completely. I think the IQ is what you need more than the physical
the running
ability.
styles are different too. Just the I played both growing up. So in the fall we always played American football. In the spring was rugby, and football is like shoulder pads down. It's just it's a game of territory and yards and inches and momentum. Where rugby certainly back then wasn't as much so. It's a bit more of a collision now than it had been, but still it's not a game of inches. It's not, you don't have to, and it's, you're more upright, you're fend and drive and separation and that kind of stuff, which you really don't necessarily have the opportunity to do in American football as well, because of shoulder pads and other pieces like that. So there's just a couple of different styles to things. Tackling is different.
Me and my brother say that every week. We watch the NFL and we say the amount of injuries that could be prevented by changing the tackle technique in American football.
Hands down, no question. But again, you got to remember the fundamental of football will always be, or it has always been,
stop them
down
where they
in
stand.
distance. Exactly, down in distance. So it's kind of an all or nothing collision in many ways, unfortunately. It's changing, but it's not.
It's terrifying, some of the hits you see people put in.
Yeah.
What was that old Seattle safety, Cam Chancellor? I imagine getting in a hit with him was like having a small car crash.
Yeah, it's just not. Yeah, I mean, I played both growing up, and so anecdotally, I just would always come off the football field, and I felt like I ran into a brick wall 10 times with my head, and my body. Rugby, you get bruised and stitches, and I was always getting stitches and everything else, especially as an open side flanker. But in terms of that kind of like head bell ringing, it was few and far between. Again, completely anecdotal, and those were my experiences, but it was just significantly different type of contact for sure.
Yeah, nice, interesting. So I always like to hear people who have involved in the world of both on their opinion. So back to the exact question: who's the worst tackler you've ever had the pleasure of playing with? The human turnstile
that I played with.
You play against if you want to keep your teammates and keep your friends happy.
That's a great question. I'd have to think about that. At what level, I guess?
I mean, professional, because it's cheating when you get some kids in school that play rugby because their dads have thrown them on the rugby field, I suppose.
Yeah, I'd really have to think about that one. There's nobody that just stands out, and there's nobody I want to make fun of yet right now.
Just wait till you've had a few bad meetings, and then we'll do it. Exactly. We'll make it a social media exclusive. You can send me the answer.
There's a bunch of people I've coached that I would say that about, but I would never say that as a coach. I'll just tell them to their face.
Here's where you can improve. Who's most up for a night out that you've ever played with?
Oh, there's a long line of fine gentlemen who would like to have a night out. I'm just looking back at my old U.S. team. There were some great ones. Toddy was kind of like my little brother on the U.S. team. Todd was always up for a fun time. Todd Clever. Yeah, there was a bunch that were had their life in order in terms of rugby and were really disciplined in their work, but were not afraid to have a night out. That was back in the game when it was very much the work hard, play hard mindset. So kind of work hard all week, overwork. A lot of times we were overtrained, way too much volume. And then, after matches or tournaments, it was just all hell broke loose. Excuse my language. Which wasn't like, that's not a great cycle to be in. I find a lot of players nowadays are much more in control, and it's not as crazy on either side.
Yeah, a few casual beers instead of all your beers in 4 hours of the weekend.
Exactly. On top of volume that you should never be doing in the first place. But again, more was better. Always more in everything. Mindset.
Can never do enough shuttle runs. I remember was when we were growing up.
Literally, we would do 10Ks at each practice, and contact at all practices, and 5 days a week, and then you're playing on Saturday. You're certainly not fresh.
Right. Well, I know I'm very conscious of time here because I don't want to make you late for your next meeting because you're a busy man. But we'll pick the best ones. Who's got the worst fashion sense you've ever played with? Any guys that have ever turned up, or any of the boys that are in the Free Jacks now? Anybody turn up with questionable fashion sense?
Mitchie Wilson's partner, she's really big into fashion, so I'd say he's got the worst fashion sense because it's so good that it's so bad.
Just out there.
Yeah, well, he's always like one step ahead, and now I don't know if it's there, but what we're seeing here in the States is a lot of 90s fashion is coming back. And I'm just like, that was like when I was a kid, or like, it's like, come on, like really, that's what we're going to come back with? That bagginess of crazy. Yeah. So yeah.
Not for you just yet.
So he's got really good taste because it's so good, it's so bad.
He's too far ahead of the curve.
Yeah, exactly.
Who can't handle a night out? Who's the one guy that would always be tactically taking a taxi home early?
Oh my gosh. There are so many that I can't even name on air because it's really, really bad.
I'll let you off. You've given me some great answers, so I'll let you off with that one. Who's the biggest joker, the biggest practical joker you've ever had in the changing room?
Oh, let me think. Jovessa was hilarious. Jovessa was world-class speed. He came up on the scene in the early 2000s with the U.S. and was just by far the fastest person on the 7th circuit and in World 15s. Jovessa was hilarious. He was always joking around, for sure. Really?
Just met the typical guy of chucking shoes in the shower and stuff like that?
Yeah, just always. I'd be like walking up the stairs. We were doing something serious, and then suddenly like he was pretending to be a dog on my feet, like from behind and scaring the shit out of me. Like just always joking around.
You need those people as long as they know when to pick the best time to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Who could you see as a future coach? Was there anybody you were ever playing with when you thought you were a coach written all over you?
Yeah, a bunch of them. I just back in the day that I was players with. You know, you look in the forwards. Dan Lyle. Dan's gone a different direction, more on the kind of business side of the sport. Dan, I thought, would have made a great coach. Dave Hodges, I was part of that group. Luke Gross was part of that group, who's become a coach. I thought they've all at the time as a player, I thought they would have. Ray Lehner, so that was old school. Guys I've worked with recently, I think there's a bunch on the Free Jacks that can make really good. Mitchie would make a really good coach, I think. Yeah. Bodine, I think, would make a really good coach. There's a bunch there that I think would be really handy as quality coaches. Josh Larson. Yeah.
Amazing. Right. And then, that's us. We're done that because I'm keeping a time frame here because I'm very much aware that I'm on your time, not the other way around. So I don't want you running around like you have to deal with me. So final question. You've got 3 cheesy pop songs to get the team ready for a night out to celebrate the end of season. What 3 songs would you pick?
What era are we talking about? Does it matter?
Any era. Your 3 favorite go-to songs.
Like, how cheesy can they be?
Cheesier the better. You know a rugby bus when you see one. Cheesy. You'll open up the door and you'll just hear Shania Twain coming out of it.
You know what I love things like early 80s ska, punk. There's something anything to do with the Clash, but that's not cheesy. So I'm trying to think like what would be something that would be really cheesy to get everybody fired up about. If we can pick an era, that may help me coalesce around something.
Go with 80s then. Go with your 80s.
Anything by Madonna would be great. Celebrate.
Great shout.
Yeah, Holiday, right? What else? Help me think of some of the great 80s music.
You're asking the big questions now. I've just got Madonna like
Africa, or like I do something like hairband stuff. I don't know, like
there you go. Yeah. Earth, Wind, and Fire got to be in there.
Pour Some Sugar on Me, something like that. I don't know.
You can just go to Spotify, click 80s classics, and then just go from there, and that's you.
The Eurythmics. I'm just trying to think of who else would be like within that. See, these are all just great stuff. They maybe seem cheesy now, but they're just fantastic.
Well, I think, yeah. See, there's so many to choose from as well. I didn't realize how difficult that question was until somebody asked it back to me. Yeah. Like, what 3 songs did you play? And I was like, I couldn't tell you.
Exactly. I was like, all right, what 3 songs? There's so many good ones. And what defines cheese?
I might just use that as the clip for the intro when I'm what defines cheese, and then just leave it with that.
Sam, you're brilliant. I loved it. Thank you. I really have to jump on to another call.
Max, don't worry. I'll do. If you need to jump off, I'll do it, and I'll just do all the socials for you there. I'll link everything down below. Max, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for giving up your time.
Thank you, Sam. You're the best. Cheers.
Amazing. Cheers. Keep in touch.
There we go. What a great episode. Once again, thank you so much to Alex for coming on. Saved me a bunch of trouble with his brilliant stories, his grateful insight, how open he was with us about the Free Jacks and everything that he's got going on in the plans, as well as talking some great stuff about the history of sport, specifically rugby in the USA. Always saving us, always giving us a great bit of help. Right, Alex, thank you so much for coming on. If you're watching this back, it was brilliant. I really, really enjoyed it. Can't thank you enough. We'll have to get it some time when you have got a bit more spare time and we can really deep dive into the stuff that you spoke about in that episode. Guys, as always, make sure you go and follow the Free Jacks and Alex himself on his socials. They're all down below. On Instagram, they're all on Twitter. They're really, really good. Make some good memes as well. I think they've got some TikToks as well. Get that. Follow, get it just. As always, make sure you thank the podcast partner that we've got, Wild Haggis Company. As usual, over an 80 at checkout for 10% off. OVERIN 80 at checkout. That gets you 10% off. Jobs are good. As usual, guys, leave a rating. 5 stars always helps on all platforms. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the works. We all know the drill. We're talking for the sake of talking, so I'll let you guys get on with the rest of your week, and we'll see you again next Wednesday. Happy days to see you. Bye.